bear baiting, an issue with strong emotions.
I disagree with it on many terms. Ethical, it's not a sporting thing to do.
Bear baiting is absolutely necessary, or we down here in the suburbs are going to be eaten alive by bears.
Bear hunting with bait, traps, and dogs. Maine's the only state to allow all three. The Vote Yes side says that's barbaric, and you should vote to ban it.
So dumping 7 million pounds of human food into the woods every single year is the worst thing that you can do.
But the Vote No side insists bear baiting is a good thing, keeping a healthy bear population in check.
There's families up north, guys that depend on it. I mean, they guide full time, and that's their bread and butter, is bear hunting. And why would anybody want to take that from us?
The debate is on. The decision is yours.
That is democracy in action. That's how it works.
It's Your Vote 2014, the bear baiting referendum. Our goal right now, to hear from all sides and get at the issues that matter to you. CBS 13, Fox 23, and the Bangor Daily News present a special town hall event, and it begins right now. Here is your host, Mark Hyman.
Every day we hear from politicians and pundits on the national stage telling us they can solve all the problems, from Islamic fundamentalism to the territorial ambitions of Russia, and even protecting Hollywood celebrities when they insist on posting nude selfies in the cloud. Good evening, I'm Mark Hyman, host of Behind the Headlines. We're glad you're here. We're in the middle of it, we're in the thick of it. It's the bear bait debate. Thank you for joining us. Now we have got a fantastic audience, anxious to get started with a lot of great questions they're going to put to our panel of experts. But you at home can also join us in this discussion. I'll give you details in just a moment. But first, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our panel. Joining us this evening is Daryl DeJoy. He's Executive Director of the Wildlife Alliance of Maine. Anita Coop. She's with Mainers for Fair Bear Hunting. Judy Camuso. She's with the Wildlife Division of the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. And James Cody. He's Campaign Manager for Save Maine's Bear Hunt. I'd like to also note that additional information on our panelists and organizations can be found on our website, WGME.com. Our panelists are here in their personal capacities. The views they represent are their own unless they tell us otherwise. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that the audience is anxious to get started. They've got a lot of great questions we want to put to our panel, but you at home can also join the discussion. WGME morning anchor Jana Barnello is manning our social media desk. She'll explain how you can join the discussion. Jana?
Thanks, Mark. It is so easy to get involved in this very controversial and emotional debate. Facebook and Twitter. If you're on Twitter, use the hashtag #YourVoiceYourFuture. We're monitoring that hashtag. We'll read your tweets throughout this debate. Also head to our page on Facebook, facebook.com/WGME13. We already have hundreds of comments from a lot of people all over the state on every side of this issue. But as you hear things tonight that maybe you have more questions about or want clarity on, let us know. I'll get your questions to our panel.
I was wondering, is your target population for the bear population here in Maine still at 23,000? And how is it that you explain your inability to reach that goal in the past 10 years?
Let's start off with Judy. What is the target goal for the population?
The population goal we came up with was 23,000 bears. As you know, and as everyone is aware, right now we estimate the population is probably above 30,000, 31,000. The reality is, even with all four of these methods, we are not harvesting enough bears every year. And so without these methods, we'll have no ability to control the population.
So when I found out about these practices of how black bears in Maine are being killed, those practices particularly being baiting, hounding, and leg hold trapping, I was appalled. And I recognized it not only as not my value, but these are not the values of this state.
My name is Brian Kogel. I live in Parsonsfield. I'm president of the Maine Trappers Association. And I have a question for Anita. You have no right to be on that board, okay? You just commented a little while ago about a dog being caught in a bear trap. That dog was caught in a coyote trap. I had permission. That was my trap. I had permission to be on that property. That man did not. If he had gone to the landowner and asked for permission, he would have known that there was traps set there. And all he had to do was take his coat and droop it over that dog and reach down and take the trap off, just like every other bird hunter, rabbit hunter has done in the past. All right? What he did was absolutely wrong. And what you're doing up there is absolutely wrong.
If you think there's a lot of emotion here in this room, I'm being told by the producer that our social media is blowing up with people at home who want to join the debate. So let's check with our social media desk. Jana, what's the latest?
Mark, I can't keep up. There are so many tweets coming in with the Your Voice, Your Future hashtag. You know, Daryl joked with me before this debate began. He said, hey, don't believe what they're going to tweet about me. And we've gotten a couple about Daryl, I have to say. I won't read them on TV. But I do want to get to one tweet from Ethan J. Tremblay, who asks, why does Maine, the state with the best management program, like Judy was talking about, keep using these management practices when other states don't? A good point there. Let's get to a Facebook comment from Nora Bryan. She says, ban it all. Bears are creatures too. Humans do more damage anyway, so let's trap them. Well, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, but I wanted to pose a question to our panel. And I think that this has a couple different implications. Lowell Cooley asked on Facebook, what's the average cost for dealing with a nuisance bear? And if we're having more nuisance bears, will those costs go up if there are more bears because of less baiting, trapping, and hunting? Mark.
Great question. Judy, do you have any estimates here on the cost?
I'm going to address that after, but first I'm going to take extraordinary exception to Daryl's comments. Randy Cross is the best bear biologist in North America. He has handled more black bears than anybody in this world, dead or alive. Randy cares more about black bears and the health of Maine's bear population than anybody in this state. There is absolutely no question. Randy thinks about bears morning, noon, and night for his entire life. Okay. If we lose our methods, we will have no opportunity to control the bear population, and that's why the department, our mandate is to protect wildlife. You know, that's what we do. We are wildlife biologists. We have dedicated our whole lives to protecting wildlife, and that's our job.
I'm Aislinn Sarnacki, and I'm an outdoor writer for the BDN. And my question, I've been writing a lot about this issue, and at a certain point I felt very bombarded by just all the numbers, the percentages. There's so much for people to take in. And when it comes right down to it, on election day, I think people are going to go into that booth and just decide what they feel is right, a lot of them at least. And so there's just the ethical piece, and I know it's going to be hard to answer quickly, but I know both sides feel they have an ethical stake in this, and I'm just wondering, you know, why do you feel that your position is right?
Well, it really is a very good question, and it really reflects when any important and particularly emotional issue comes up, there are dueling experts. That is the case in climate change, and you see it right now. That was the case in the tobacco industry. Everyone trotted out their own scientists, their own analysis of the data, and it really just seemed like dueling data. So what did it come down to? And what should it come down to here? I want to tell you what fair chase is. Fundamental to ethical hunting is the idea of fair chase. This concept addresses the balance between the hunter and the hunted. It is a balance that allows hunters to occasionally succeed while animals generally avoid being taken. And that's from an institute that provides leadership on ethical and philosophical issues to promote fair chase hunting and responsible hunting. That is what fair chase hunting is. When you have game guides, Maine guides who are saying that they get 70, 80 or higher % rate, we're no longer talking about a fair chase hunt. The animals are clearly outgunned. Not to use a pun, the control is all in our hands. There is no opportunity for the animals to defend themselves in these situations, and there's no opportunity in these cases for them to get away when we're talking about being habituated to bait and being habituated to trapping. So I think fundamentally people care. There's a compassion for animals in this country, and it's growing, and people understand that this is wrong. When they see these really inhumane, cruel, unnecessary practices taking place, when you see a population taking off and other states' population stabilizing when they eliminate these things, people will sit back, and I agree with you. I do think people will act on their own sense of moral indignation here and our moral responsibility to animals.
I passionately believe that this referendum will cripple the department's ability to do the effective management that you have all hired us to do.
Okay, we're continuing on.
Well, my name is Randy Cross. I live in Hancock, and I work for Maine Fish and Wildlife, and I've worked with black bears for 32 years now, Black Bear Research. And I do hunt, but I don't have a website. I would like to say that one thing that has been overlooked, and that is that the health of the black bear population is my greatest concern. I know as a department we have to have a concern for public safety. That's not my greatest concern. Always in the Department of Fish and Wildlife, resource has always been first. It's one of the things I was most struck with when I started working with the department. We continue to put resource first. It always comes above everything else. When we're talking about the black bear population, down the road, when they approach their biological carrying capacity, which is when they reach the limit of the land's ability to produce food for them, bears are going to begin struggling. At that point, the primary mortality of black bears in the wilds of Maine will be disease and starvation. And because I've been so close to bears all these years, that really bothers me. It bothers me way more than the problems that the people of southern Maine will have. I really don't want to see bears have to go through that. I think I'll end there, but that Judy's done a good job defending my name, I think. I think that there, as a department, we manage the bears for all the people of the state of Maine, but we manage the bears for their health. We want bears to thrive, not to struggle to survive. That's the bottom line.
All right, thank you. I'd like to get a quick comment, a brief comment from Daryl, and then I've got checking with social media, but please.
I am 100% with Randy. I care about animals. I do everything that I do with no gain whatsoever, no financial gain. I pay my own money for everything that I do, and I believe in what I'm doing as well as Randy does. I would like to see our bear population in harmony with the natural food sources, and frankly it isn't. We're seeing a tremendous loss of beech trees in the state. We have beech bark disease. We're seeing a loss of oak. We're seeing a decline in natural mast foods. We are supplementing those former mast foods with all this junk food. And there is some point, as bait continues to grow, as the use of bait continues to grow, that we are going to be feeding bears half their calories at the time of year that we're doing that, and artificially boosting the population, the reproduction every year. I want us to go back to a more natural cycle of bears having cubs every other year in harmony with the mast crops, or maybe every 3 years. If we do that, yes, we are going to see a point where bears will starve. But we need to get to that natural growth rate, not an unnatural growth rate that we're causing currently right now.
Well, we certainly have a lot more to come with our audience here, the questions they want to ask, and certainly answers from our panel. But I've got to check with our social media desk because folks at home are just as excited about this entire topic. So let's go with social media. Jana, what's the latest?
Mark, the Trust Randy hashtag is taking off. So Randy, I don't know if you're on Twitter, but you got some fans out there, I have to say. If we can pull that up, I know our producers are working to get that, but I mean, literally, I'm looking at this. There are 15 new tweets right now. So a lot of people really are supporting Randy. I wanted to pose a question to our panel. There's a lot of talk about humane and whether hunting is humane in general. And is it more humane to kill a bear with a trap where it's suffering and maybe struggling for some time before the hunter gets there, or is it more humane to starve to death? Either way, it's not a pretty death. And so I'd like the panel to weigh in on the humanity of the way that these bears die.
James, we haven't heard from you in a few moments.
Sure, I appreciate the question. One of the things that I'd just briefly touch on, you know, I'm glad Daryl says that he pays for everything that he does. The fact is he nor many people in this state are paying for the campaign that they're funding right now. It's one group in Washington, D.C. that has funded over 99% of their campaign.
penny of mine.
Back to the question at hand, I think one of the things that's really important to know is that, in exchange for these methods of hunting, we have the healthiest bear population in the country. We've got one of the most nationally recognized bear biologist teams in the country, maybe in the world. And the bottom line is they continue to say that we need all three methods to manage the bear population. So I think if you look at that in contrast of starving bears or diseased bears down the road, of course, I think the exchange is perfectly acceptable.
All right, let me leave it there, and we'll get back to the rest of our panelists in a few moments, but we want to get as many questions in as possible. Sir, please tell us who you are, where do you live, and what is your question?
My name is Robert Fisk from Falmouth, and my question is for Mr. Cody. In 2004, the opponents of the referendum used the slogan and the mantra of science and safety. And we saw statements in TV ads implying that if the referendum passed, that families and pets would be maimed and killed in their backyards. Now in 2014, we see the same messaging. The fact is that bears are shy, evasive, peaceful animals that avoid human contact. Leaving food outside and banging a couple pots together is really all you need for safety. In fact, in Maine, not one person has ever been killed or seriously injured by a Maine black bear. So my question is to this false safety issue and to what Bangor Daily News outdoor editor, columnist John Holyoke, a staunch opponent of the referendum, wrote is, quote, "The alarmists have suggested that the bears will attack people, eat their babies, and terrorize us all. This is just hyperbole and has no place in the upcoming debate. My question is, are you going to continue with this scare tactic?"
Can I take follow up? With all due respect, I think it's very important. I think it's a great thing that we've never experienced a bear fatality in the state. But I find it very hard to believe that the woman who got dragged out of her garage in Florida, that the 12-year-old girl who was mauled in Michigan, or any of the other folks across the country where we're seeing increased attacks on people would say that bears are peaceful animals. I think they're a beautiful creature. I think they deserve the greatest protections in the world and to maintain a healthy bear population. But the bottom line is bears are a dangerous creature if left unmanaged. And if we eliminate these three tools, we'll have no control over Maine's bear population.
And I want to bring Anita back in the conversation. Again, I'm going to ask for really short answers because we're running down to the final minutes. And then I certainly want to get back to Judy and Daryl as well. But Anita, please.
I would say it's really laudatory to hear the focus on the bear as a bear, because it is a creature that deserves to be respected. It's a fascinating animal, and it deserves to be treated with fairness and only subjected to those methods that are necessary in the managing of the population. And for the scenario that Randy speaks to, of the point at which there are too many bears, I would think that that would be the concern right now. The methods that are being used are resulting in a population that is going up and up and up and up. And one very likely source of it is the fact that the bears are being given so much food that it is increasing their productivity and it is increasing the bear survivability. And that is something that is widely discussed and commented upon biologists outside the state. And it makes sense. This is where the experts say rely on us. It makes common sense. When you feed the bears that much food, you are forcing the population up. So the concern shouldn't be, what are we going to do when there are so many of them? The concern should be, what are we going to do to stop the population from getting that high? That's what they did in Washington State and Colorado. They stopped all these practices.
All right, and we're going to have to cut them really short answers because we're almost out of time. Please tell us who you are, where do you live, and what is your question?
My name's Julia Oren. I'm from Cape Elizabeth, and I want to thank you all for being here. Personally, I'd rather die of starvation and disease than die with my leg getting stuck in a trap or my head getting blown off because I'm eating a jelly donut. So what I'd really like to know is, and have a better understanding of, is the trap process. How long does it take? Does the bear suffer terribly? What about the whole donut issue with the animals going, and also the the use of dogs and the chasing down of the bears. So for me, it seems so horrifically inhumane, and I would just like to have a better understanding of the death of these animals and how long it takes for them to actually die.
All right, I want to get a response from Judy and then get Daryl to join in as well.
And I can speak to this pretty well. I've been in the field when we've captured bears using this technique. The cable restraint device is really the only device that people use in the state of Maine. And it's used by our biologists. We use it year after year. We've trapped and released thousands of black bears unharmed. We use it. Biologists all across the country use this method. It's been reviewed by university and animal care committees all across the country, and it's been approved as the most efficient, effective, and humane tool for biologists and researchers to use when managing wildlife. You know, and it's important to note that these three methods combined make up 93% of our annual harvest. And I am committed to the belief that we will not be able to control the population without these tools. And, you know, I just want to speak to the sort of, you know, your passion. And I've spent my whole life trying to connect people with wildlife. Most of my career, or a significant portion of my career, I worked for Maine Audubon, and I was primarily a bird guide. And my job was to bring people outside and to connect them to wildlife with the belief that if people care about things, they will work to protect them. The last thing I want is to people have non-stop nuisance complaints with black bears, because the bear becomes devalued. It becomes nothing more than a pest. Right now, black bears...
And let me see if I can get a response from Daryl. I want to get Daryl on this before we wrap up.
I don't have a lot of response to that other than to say that I disagree. I don't think that's going to happen. I think when we stop feeding bears, the population growth will slow. I do think we will see a short period of time, couple of years, where hunting will decline because we will have to rebuild our skill set to be fair chase hunters. I do believe that if there is not enough food, some bears will starve, but I think we'll come back to a more natural reproductive system. And just quickly on James' point.
Real quickly, I'm almost out of time.
Very quickly, 20 people since 1900 have been killed in the lower 48 states by bears. Every year, 20 people are killed by cows. So that's a fact you can check.
Okay, and we've almost reached the end of our program, so we're going to go with our last question of the evening. I'm going to give both Anita and James the chance for the last word. You're each going to have about 45 seconds in your response because we're out of time. Sir, please tell us who you are, where do you live, and what is your question?
Yes, my name is David Trahan. I'm the Executive Director of the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine. For Daryl and Anita, are you familiar with your own legislation that now, for the first time in Maine history, if this passes, would allow the supplemental feeding of bears? Your legislation creates, the first time, the legalization of feeding bears. Secondly, Ms. Coop, you said that the Humane Society was not opposed to hunting. Have you been on their website? It says so on their website. And your leaders that you're serving with told me directly to my face that if this referendum passed, that they would stay in Maine and continue to take away other types of hunting. Are you familiar with that discussion?
All right, before we go, I'll give James an opportunity to address this issue, and then Anita, you'll get the last word of the evening. But James, please.
I appreciate the question, and it's important for the people of Maine to know. The group that is financing the outcome of this election, which is a bad outcome for the state of Maine, it's a dangerous outcome for the state of Maine, frankly, have waged these campaigns in states all across the country. Mainers for Fair Bear Hunting and the Humane Society of the United States don't care any more about bears and bear hunting than they do about banning hunting altogether. And I think it's really important for the people of Maine to understand that.
I very much appreciate
And Anita,
the direct accusations here.
You get the last word, please.
The specific things that are attributed to the Humane Society of the United States are not true. That is not stated on our website. If Mr. Trahan were accurate in saying that the supplemental feeding is the first time that it's legal, then it would be that the feeding that is taking place at this moment under the law as it currently stands would be illegal. So that's simply absolutely nonsensical.
It is on your
and
website.
The other point that was raised here, and talking about the Humane Society of the United States, as I will tell you, I've been in this organization, I've been on the board for 25 years. There has never once been a statement, an effort, a movement, a plan, a discussion about eliminating hunting, not once. So whatever you are suggesting is there is absolutely not there. It is also the case that to talk about people who belong to an organization. I belong to the Humane Society of the United States. I live in Maine. The Humane Society of the United States has thousands of members here who support the principles of fair chase. They support humane treatment of animals. And as citizens of this state, it's important that they, along with everyone who shares that ethic, have the opportunity to vote in a referendum in which these practices are put to the people about whether this is consistent and whether, based on discussions such as this, it's necessary or warranted, whether we should continue practices such as this.
All right, and the producers told me we have like another minute to get a quick follow-up, and so we're going to see if we can wrap this up.
Yes, for listeners out there, if you want to go to the Humane Society of the U.S. website, go to their wild animal section. I'm just telling you where it says you're against hunting.
What are you attributing to it? What are you attributing
The
to
Humane
it?
Society of the U.S. website, go to the wild animals section under hunting. It says, as a principle, you're opposed to all hunting. The second thing is you didn't address the supplemental feeding that will be legalized under your referendum.
It's legalized now.
It's
legalized right now.
It says it right in the referendum.
But it's legalized now.
All right, and lastly, okay, I had a meeting with a gentleman behind me as a witness with the leaders of the Humane Society, 5 of them, where they said that they would stay in Maine and continue to do referendums to take away the other hunting that we care about.
All right, and hold on, and we're going to do is I'm going to let Daryl have the last word in this, and then we're all out of time. So Daryl, I know you don't represent the Humane Society, but can you talk in general terms about the overarching goals for those of you who support the referendum, because that's what tonight is about. We will discuss the Humane Society at some other point, but I want you to have the last word tonight on the issue, and then I'm all out of time.
Sure. It's as simple as this. I've been fighting for wildlife, for good, proper methods of harvesting wildlife, not banning hunting at any time or trapping in the state of Maine. And it's this simple. We need to do these kind of referendums to make positive change, because within Augusta, you meet an absolute brick wall. I don't believe HSUS is against hunting. I do think, I looked on their website once and I thought it said they're against sport hunting. And that's different from being against hunting, because a lot of Mainers hunt for their food. That's not the same as being against hunting. I think that the people of Maine need to look really hard at, I know I threw a bunch of numbers out there, but those numbers are accurate. 500,000 calories in 60 days for every single bear in the state of Maine. Look at the studies. There are at least 6 peer-reviewed, published studies all over the United States that show positive reproduction effects specifically from baiting black bears. I think we can find a better way to manage bears than feeding bears and needing to bring in more and more hunters. We haven't had 3,600 bears taken in at least 15 or even 20 years. Now they're saying we need 4,500 bears. We need to find a better way, and I think we can find a better way. I think it's going to take forced change, but I do think we can find a way.
All right. And we're going to have to make that the final word, because we've actually gone over time. Now, tonight you've heard differing points of view on a very passionate topic in which the public is evenly divided. We hope some of you at home who are undecided have learned something tonight that will help you make your decision, because it all happens in the first Tuesday of November. You get to decide. Now, on behalf of our panel of experts, our studio audience, our media partners at the Bangor Daily News, we'd like to thank you at home for joining us. Remember to watch the late news for coverage of today's town hall and all the breaking news. And as always, we support our military, law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs, and other emergency personnel for service to their communities and our nation. I'm Mark Hyman. Good night.